because I no longer have my own classroom. So when I began doing the transformational trainings, which were about 13 years ago,
Whoa.
I was a sixth grade teacher in La Puente, California. I was in my third year of of teaching. I just received my master's from Claremont Graduate University, and after doing the 5-month transformational leadership program at Mastery and Transformational Training, that's the name of the company there, that 5 months completely changed my path, who I was, how I taught in the classroom, opened up a lot for me. And I stayed in Los Angeles 2 more years. During those 2 years, I had switched jobs over to a nonprofit. I worked for the Cesar Chavez Foundation and worked in 13 inner city high schools in Los Angeles, so East, South, and Central LA. And then after that, moved back home to New Mexico. I was in the nonprofit world for about a year and a half, 2 years, helping to start up it's a national program called Public Allies that is under the umbrella of AmeriCorps. So it does,
okay.
It does like internships for 18 to 30-year-olds. So I was the program manager for that. And then
Can I ask, what was it called again? Public, it's through AmeriCorps, right?
Yeah, Public Allies.
Allies, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then I moved over to Girl Scouts. I did a 6-month contract with them to help them integrate Girl Scouting into the Hispanic community here in Albuquerque. So that's where I currently live, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And after that, with 2 other friends of mine, established our nonprofit Community Leadership Foundation. And so our nonprofit was established to bring transformational trainers here to New Mexico to be able to provide the opportunity of trainings. And it was through that process that I met Betty, because let's say in between the process of me moving back home, I went to her Mastery and Transformation, Master's course. That's what she offers. And so I met Betty and I went to that course. And then she and Ray Blanchard later helped as master trainers for us here in New Mexico to develop our own 5-month transformational training program. So we have a 5-month program that is focused on 18 principles of leadership. Over the course of those 5 months, our leaders do about 300 direct hours of leadership development work. And so that's whether they're with a trainer, with their coach, with their cohort of people. It's a very intense 5 months. Mm-hmm. And then, over the course of the last 9 years, we have hosted Betty here in New Mexico for the Mastery course. She's coming here and delivered that curriculum. That's hers. And then I also have taken her the coaching program. Mm-hmm. I took it fairly early, about 6 years ago. I was pregnant with my son at the time, and she was doing the course in Mexico. So I went all the way through the program, but did not complete the final weekend. So then 2.5 years ago, I went through her program again. So the same train the coach, right? Coaching training program in Los Angeles. So it was the first time that she had brought it to the States. And so I completed that program. And then, I've also, along the way of having the nonprofit, I also have my own coaching business called Coaching Solutions. And so I've been a coach for 12 years now.
Wow.
I give you all of that so that when you're seeing maybe some of the questions or how you want to direct them. Currently with our nonprofit, one of the things that I do is over the last year and a half, I've established some contracts with our state education program, so the Public Education Department of New Mexico. And what we have done is train 650 teachers statewide, about 25 parents statewide, and 25 high school students statewide all in different programs that the State Department is focused on. Really, their whole thing is, how do we get community knowledge about our public education department, what's happening, what are systems, what's going on, and what's the pipeline of information from the state to the community and from the community to the state. And so over the time that they've been doing these programs, they've brought me in as a partner, and I have essentially use a lot of our 5-month curriculum. So I, pick and choose different areas of that curriculum, as well as coached, right? So coach these folks into having different perspectives, understanding worldviews, which is a big part of Betty's coaching training program. So those two things that I started early on in terms of taking the transformational development work, and then also my relationship with going through all of Betty's coursework, have had a major impact in the work that I do here in New Mexico, and also in other parts of the nation that I'm called to.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I don't know if Betty's trying to have something very similar to what you're describing, but she does a 10-month program, and I believe, or 9-month program, and I believe it's $10,000 to be trained. And so she's looking for donors or sponsorship, and we're trying to explain to these donors why she calls it ontological training, why this is so important to teachers today. And so you've trained 650 teachers?
With our own curriculum.
So, with your own curriculum.
Okay. Yeah. So not using Betty's curriculum, right? So just so, to make those distinctions, I have utilized coaching modalities, right? So like pieces of what I've learned in terms of how to coach, how to facilitate, right? So I've had the fortune of being in many of Betty's training rooms, and I used to oversee all of our coaches. So Betty would come into town and do one of her workshops. I would have the coaches ready to go in and support her. When I took her program, so the coaching program, the 10-month program that you're talking about, when I took that, I brought along one of my alumni from our nonprofit. He had done all of our coursework and was really looking to become a coach. And so took him, basically the two of us support each other as buddies to make it through the 10-month program. And so, I've seen a lot of different areas where her work is so vital. The work that I do now in our nonprofit has helped me to coach immense number of people. So not only, the work that I've done for our nonprofit, but also, when I go out as a representative of our nonprofit doing conferences or summits or different things like that, people ask me to coach them, right? But even through the process of my workshops, I'm coaching people, right? And they don't necessarily know it, right? They don't know that they're meeting a person with as many hours of coaching and training practice as I have. They just think, oh, we're here to do a workshop, right? I'm really grateful for my relationship with her, and definitely in terms of, I think maybe giving you my background and hearing your background a bit, I'd love to maybe walk through the 7 questions you have, and we can. I can talk into like different aspects from the framework of a teacher, but then also from like what I've seen and experienced of maybe some of the coaching things that I have used when coaching or training those 650 teachers statewide, right? Because I think there's one of the other things that I've also had to do over the years that we've had our nonprofit is also speak to sponsors, right? So a lot of our participants that come to our trainings are in fact educators. And so a lot of times I'll go out to community and develop sponsorship so that the teachers can have the funding to attend our courses, right? So so everything that you're talking into, I got you. I think that that's one of the reasons why Betty Prey had me on the list to speak with you is, oh my gosh, like the different ways of my background that might be able to support what you all are doing with this grant writing.
Well, I think that that's so impressive, and honestly, I see Betty as wanting to do this in different states or even the larger world, because she does do training throughout the U.S. and also, I think, some of Europe too, or Mexico, I think.
Mexico and Africa.
And Africa, yes. So let me just ask you these questions, and if we'll try and tailor it so we can have like I just want like some quotes and something to explain. I mean, you've been on that other side where sponsors, they sometimes don't get it and how important this training is to connect with students, to have students and teachers, fellow teachers working with each other. So let me just get through these questions, and we'll see if you feel that you want to add something that would be, since you have done this, that would be a better angle, then I am totally open. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. How do you define ontology to someone who's unfamiliar with this approach?
School to have a different experience with how she was feeling and experiencing, preparing and getting her students ready for this huge test in the education system. And then getting her really clear on what was it that she wanted to create. And what was really interesting was once she figured that out, she no longer had the experience of the anxiety. Right? So she had a new experience within a 30-minute phone call of what she was creating and how impactful it was, and really the place of being that she was committed to, right? So for her, it was a place of, her students being able to have honest feedback and reflection on how are they doing and what's next, what do they need to work on, and what did they really understand, even in a very stressful situation, that they could, talk to the test. And it was a really powerful call, because I think that a lot of times in my experience of working with educators, the test is in the school system made to be such a huge marker of performance. And without any type of coaching, people come with whatever skill set they have to approach their fears or the things that put them, in a place of I'm in the hot seat, I'm worried, right?
Yeah.
And so the coaching process that I learned through Betty has helped me to work with people, in particular educators, on what their story is, and is it aligned to what their passion and their purpose as a teacher is for themselves, and if not, how to easily shift it into what it is that they want to create.
I love that. But just to make sure I round this out, could you give an example of you as a teacher when you used your transformational leadership and changed the student or a group of students approach or their outlook?
Well, I would say what's really wonderful is how, this type of education learning, right, is it's not hard to move it over to the work I do with students. So this year, the work I've done with students, well, actually, what I'd like to talk about, so at Community Leadership Foundation, we have a high school program where we work with students, much so like the curriculum we do with adults, yet when we were going through the process, we invited in the practice of having coaches. And, it's a one-year program for high school students, and they come together 4 times during the year, which is very difficult for high school students. You would think it would be really easy, but students nowadays have so much on their plate.
So much, right.
Yes. So much. It's overwhelming sometimes to even get like an hour with them. And these students that went through our program were adamant about keeping the coaching process in the program. So at different weekends, I would sit with them and I would check in. And I would ask them, do we take the coaching part out? Is that taking too much time away from what you need to do at home or not, or school or your other activities? And they were so adamant about keeping the coaching process. And, our coaching process was developed from what I've learned from Betty. So I think one of the biggest pieces that I've found in the coaching process working is our young people finding their voice. And what I mean by that is a lot of students, they have a lot to say, yet the courage to say it when, for the most part, until they're 18, there's a place of being dominated. So their parents are in charge, their teachers are in charge, the administration's in charge, the, coach is in charge, right? There's all these parts of their lives where somebody kind of gets to say, here's your boundaries. This is what you can do, what you can't do.
That is dictated, right.
Yeah, it's dictated to them. And so our young people, in being coached, a lot of what they would, speak into was, how do I talk to my parents about XYZ, right? How do I, I got this grade, but I don't think it's fair. And how do I get to go and speak with my teacher and create a win-win for them to really understand that I do care about my education, and yet I also care about my grade, and I want to learn, and I also, want to improve and have better grades, right? One student, very, very powerful young lady who is a spoken word poet here in Albuquerque, who took our course. What the coaching supported her to recognize is how it helped her to be able to speak to her parents, right? Because she comes from a very open family, and at the same time, sometimes as a teenager, you still find parts where you don't meet eye to eye with your parents, right? You kind of butt heads, and so I think that was so. So not just finding your voice. I think that one of the other pieces of what I've seen with our young people who have been coached is the way they are coached is from a very respectful space. And so when you learn how to coach others and respect what they have to say, especially teenagers, students, they learn how to then speak to others, their peers, and other adults that way, like still strong and still clear and still opinionated, and yet open to hear if the opinion on the other side isn't exactly theirs, able to look and seek for collaboration, to check for clarity, to be able to also, find spaces where both parties can move forward, right? Like that takes a lot of skill, and the coaching that we've seen with our students has really supported to build that skill set for them.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, my brother, he teaches in Houston and Texas. He's an art teacher, and so he's been teaching high school art for I would say 13 years. And they just had that shooting, like literally 15 minutes away from where he teaches.
Wow!
Yeah. And so he and I were talking about this, and he said if only students learned how to communicate with each other and communicate instead of using violence. Now, do you think this training would help students and maybe lessen school shootings? Or, I mean, that's a big, wide, broad brush that I'm using, but it just seems like there's a lack of connection with some of these students who they feel like their only way of communicating is through death and through hurting other people.
From what I have experienced, yes, this work is extremely valuable in terms of giving skill sets that typically in a fear-based society where competition is only win-lose, it's absolutely valuable. It supports it. It changes that. I mean, I've seen it this last year with the teachers that I work with, how even they struggle to communicate and interact respectfully and collaboratively with each other. With the work that we have done together, it has changed so many. They have changed, right? And so when they change and they have other possibilities of how to have the story of who they are as educators, what education means, how, to be lit up again and really be excited about the learning process and it being a process. They can laugh at themselves. I call it falling off the bike and getting back on in my workshops. And oftentimes teachers don't have a skill set to fall down, right? To not be perfect in front of their students or in front of their colleagues or their own partner, right? Their kids. And so in the course of doing this type of work where people begin to have different language and different ways of seeing life. So that's one of the big things that coaches will, anyone who, educators who attend this work with Betty, they're going to understand themselves and have skill set with having other ways of experiencing the world, because it is about how do you have people discover more about the world when you're coaching, discover more about their world. So then if you change that way, how you interact with your colleagues, how you interact with your students, how you interact with your administration, how you interact with the state education or with the school board is different. And that makes a difference, right? Because when people have the ability to go, oh, that person might not have that skill versus, oh, that person is a horrible leader, right?
Right.
When you have the ability to give that person some compassion and say, oh, that student didn't get that right, that doesn't mean they're an idiot. That doesn't mean they're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it means it's just a piece of skill that we got to work on,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's some discovery to be done. So when students have this ability, right? So when teachers go into the classroom with this and they interact with their students that way, and then they teach it because they're in that experience, and students will be, what's the beauty of this is students pick it up way faster than adults. And anytime somebody interacts with them in a different way, it's noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, oh, what is that? I want more of that. Can we do that in our other classes? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so students will ask for that environment and that experience and that ability to have trust, because that's a big part of it. If a teacher trusts themselves, if they trust their colleagues, if they trust that, wow, yeah, the system of education is, got some work to do, but I'm a part of it, so let's all get to work here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then students trust. And then they can have conversations about where they trust and where they don't trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge part of coaching, because as a coach, you're learning how to develop trust. And when it's broken, you're also learning how to repair it, or how to really have an honest, authentic conversation about what didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge thing that's impactful when we talk about these larger school traumas that are happening, right? Mm-hmm. Not only, like, a lot of times people are like, oh, trust either exists or it doesn't, and when you break it, there's no getting it back. Well, that's really false.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a belief, right? That's a belief. So when you have a belief that trust is learned, and how you learn it, it's always going to be either there or not. And when it's not, you can always get it back or create it with intention, right? With skill set, with courage. Like, because it takes courage to have the conversation. Ooh, that didn't work. Yikes, I'm sorry. Can we work on it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a big part of what people learn from Betty in these courses is how to be courageous, because she's a very courageous person also.
Mm-hmm. She is amazing. She really is.
Mm-hmm.
And you are too. I am so thankful that you took the time to share all of your experience and your insight with me. Honestly, this is, even though we had 9 questions, quite a few of them we checked off while you were sharing, and I'm like, oh, that's another question I don't need to ask. so
Oh, nice.
Well, this is wonderful. And so, do you mind if I put your last name too?
Yeah, that's fine.
And what is your last name?
I do this all the time. Garcia.
Garcia. Okay.
Yeah, so if you could, the way you write it, if you could put E dot, so that I have a first name Eileen, but I don't use it professionally. E dot Celestina Garcia. That's the way I usually kind of put my name out there.
Okay. Yes. Well, I truly appreciate you taking this time. I'm sure it was a long day. I'm writing something up, and I would love your feedback, and I will try and send it to you. Well, they're asking for it by Monday, so I'm going to make sure. Yeah, but I have a lot of amazing quotes from you, and I will definitely make sure to have you read it over to make sure that you feel that you were represented fairly too. But I did record this, so I'm going to make sure to quote you verbatim. So.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate all that you're doing. I'm super excited to see this process because, much like Betty, you would like to do more of this work around the nation. That's part of my commitment and partnership with her, is to do the work here in New Mexico and other parts. So the more we can grow how we language things to grantors and write grants and learn what is working and what's not in terms of how we language things. I would definitely love to have conversations with you afterwards about that, because that's a huge thing that I'm moving into in my nonprofit, is how do we begin to build more, opportunities for, because the teachers I've worked with for a year and a half, they only know pieces of the curriculum that I've been sharing with you, right? They think, oh, we've gotten so much. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish you would come to my 3-day course, right? My 5-month program.
Yes.
That's a thing for us to hear is, because what we've done here at CLF is how do we take people and, bring them into that 5-month program so then they can have access to Betty, right? Because Betty, she trains at a level where you already have to have, some practice, right? And so, to go to her master's program or even in this coaching program, that the awareness to go to something like this or even to see yourself receiving a scholarship for $10,000 to go to a program like this is a lot for some women and men, right? They don't see themselves in that place or they wouldn't write for the application, right? So I think there's a process of breakthrough to get people to that level, and we're definitely committed to building more of those trained professionals here in New Mexico as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think as this conversation progresses and more people see it as this is a skill set, this is teachable. This isn't. Sometimes it's not innate, so it is teachable. It is a learning, modality. But so once people start to respect it and not see it as, oh, this is so new agey life coaching, and instead this is just human interactions and framing your world differently. If once it gets in the larger world, once it gets more common, I think then hopefully it'll just become commonplace.
Right, and I encourage you to, if your brother is not already in the program, that you encourage him to sign up and be a part of it, because I know that sometimes people will put it off. Oh, let me go next time. There's a lot of ground that we lose as we have people waiting, right? So if it's something that you can finagle, I don't know if he signed up for this coaching round.
No, he hasn't. No, I mean, he hasn't. So.
Yeah. So, there's opportunity there, right? In terms of course, he probably had so many conversations of why he can't, time, money, et cetera, and that's part of the fun in all of this too, is to be able to support people to see those possibilities, right? To say, hey, Betty, how do we create this, and have that space, open up, that it. Even though it's weeks away, we have people that sign up the night before.
Yes, definitely. So I truly appreciate you taking this time.
Sure.
This has
yes,
really
thank you for including me.
Been wonderful, and so I have a lot of amazing information and insight, and so but I would love to have a conversation about how to language things, and so I owe you one. I definitely do. So anytime you need something edited, I'm really good at editing too. So
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, and know that it's my pleasure to be able to help out with this process. You owe me nothing. What I love is that we are all in this together, creating and building it, and that we also get to be in relationship with new people, right? Without you saying yes to writing this grant, we wouldn't know each other now, right? And now we do. So there's always a lot of beautiful movement whenever we say yes to things.
Yes, it is. Yes. So
awesome. Well, you have a great night, okay?
You
and
too.
If you need anything, you let me know, okay?
I will. Thank you so much again.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so you're asking me 2 questions in one.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So I am an educator. I teach both 4th and 5th grade. And if you were to look up my information in my school's directory, it would say Andrea Ibo, ELA, Social Studies, 4th and 5th grade teacher. That's what it would say.
Okay.
And the second part is, what was the second question?
Well, just I think I asked your title and what you do. So you're an educator, 4th and 5th grade.
Yes.
Okay. Social studies?
Social Studies and ELA, English Language Arts.
Yes.
So that's, the reading and writing and
Mhm.
listening, speaking.
Yes. And how long have you done that for?
At this school or in general?
In general.
I've been teaching, this is my 15th year.
Wow. Wow. That's
How
amazing.
long were you in education?
Well, I taught high school for about 3 years, and then I switched over to the community college because it was Palm Beach Community College for so long. It was just, for me, I think I just loved the community college environment, and I was able to be an advisor, and then I taught some classes as an adjunct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just like
I love the community college environment.
Mhm. And Palm Beach,
almost like an extension of high school.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great. It was really, and I'm moved back home. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and
sweet.
yeah, so more Niagara Falls, New York. So
okay.
Yeah. So, but
Beautiful.
let me ask you. I know you've had a long, long day, so I truly appreciate you taking this time to speak with me.
You're welcome.
First, if it's okay, is it okay if I record this phone call?
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if I'm quoting you, I quote you correctly. And before we publish anything, I will send it to you and you can read through it and make sure that, you feel
no problem.
correctly represented. So why did you, well, number one, okay, because I think you understand what Betty's goal is, to try and get sponsorship so teachers can get ontological training. And so for someone who doesn't understand what ontological training is, how would you describe it to them?
Okay. So that's such a broad question because I'm in education and I'm thinking about educators who do not understand what ontological coaching is and how will they be able to apply that type of learning into the classroom. So that's where my listening went.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to respond from a teacher's point of view. And I would say to a teacher who doesn't know what ontological coaching is, that it is an opportunity to be with a student in such a way where we are capturing their very essence of their beingness.
Mm.
And the way that looks in the classroom is through a series of questions. And so the child who is listening to the questions feel like they are being supported and that they have an opportunity to express whatever it is that they need to express to the teacher without feeling bad or wrong.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Okay. Very good. Well, what drew you to ontological coaching?
Okay, so my response is going to have many levels. Okay, so
many levels. That's why I'm recording this.
Right? Okay, so for one, anything that Betty does, I'm all for it. That's just a given. I've known Betty for almost half my life.
Wow.
She has seen me grow into the woman that I am today.
Mm.
So wherever Betty goes, I'm going.
Mhm.
I learned about her coaching school through a very close friend of mine, Christine Stevens. And when I learned about it, I wanted to do it immediately because what I heard from Christine's sharing is it was an opportunity for me to take my coaching or the coaching that I was doing at the time to a new level. And
Mhm.
outside of that, I also wanted to, I'm a happy learner, so I'm
Mm.
always open and willing to learn new things, and especially things that I could apply into my everyday life and career.
Mhm.
And um, it's something that I wanted to do for myself personally, for my own personal educational gain and personal / spiritual gain as well. Does that make sense? Are you still there?
I'm so sorry. Yes. Yes.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry. The phone cut out for a second. So it's for your own personal gain. Okay.
So
So
those are the several reasons why.
so many people are saying that we are experiencing, this is another question, a quote
Uh-huh.
unquote crisis in education. How does this training counter that?
How does it counter?
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, crisis in education, like students aren't graduating or
No, I understand the crisis part, but explain the question a little further so I could better understand it. Because you said, how does
this training counter this?
this thing help? Yes. So how does this training help with the crisis in education?
Help alleviate the crisis in education? Or, you know, how do you think that this is improving the education system or the students?
Okay, so I think that this training could improve the educational system by coaching more teachers, for sure.
Mhm.
And the way that this training will support teachers in the classroom who are experiencing the crisis or the crises firsthand is by giving the teachers the tools that they need to one, listen, to understand, to be able to relate,
Mhm.
and to problem solve in a more effective way.
Mm. Mhm.
Like with ontological coaching, I sometimes don't even realize how much of the training I use in the classroom because it has become embedded. It's like second nature
Mhm.
until I had an experience today with a student. I think today was the first day I realized, wow, this is really, really impactful. So, ontological coaching in the classroom is definitely paying attention to students' beingness, right?
Mhm.
And in essence, there are a series of questions that I will ask as a teacher with the experience of ontological coaching under my belt that will help me better assess the situation.
Okay.
In education, a lot of times, a lot of situations that are dealt by adults are dealt with a preconceived notion or judgment, whatever you would like to call it.
Mhm.
So they enter into the situation as combative themselves, or like I'm a problem solver, or this child is constantly whatever. They have judgments about it.
Mhm.
With ontological coaching, um, the judgment is totally taken out, because as the teacher and coach, my goal is to figure out what are the students thinking, what are their beliefs about what they're thinking, um, and also like where did that thinking come from,
Mhm.
so that I could then support the kids or the students or the children effectively.
Mhm. Can you give me an example of some of the questions that you would ask these students?
Yes. So, um, when did the situation occur? How did the situation occur? Why do you think the situation occurred in that manner?
Mhm.
How did you feel when you were blah blah blah? Um, how did it feel in your body when
Mhm.
you did blah blah blah?
Mhm.
So I do a little twist also. How do you think the other person might have felt?
Mhm.
Mm, what could you have done differently?
Mhm.
Create a scenario for me in which you would have done that situation differently. How would you feel in this new situation that you created? How do you think the other person will feel in this situation? What was
Wow.
your takeaway? Like, what was your takeaway? What did you learn?
Mhm.
And what is your next step? And
Wow.
at the end, that student will either be apologetic or whatever.
Yeah. But you also said removing the judgment. Is that what the questions do? So you can see the student without the preconceived notions and the judgments?
Well, the questions are even deeper than that, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
let's say it's a child. Hold on for one moment, guys. Guys. Thank you. Okay, so let's say that it's a student who. Oh boy, hold on again. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, I'm back again.
I understand completely. I'll be honest, I am in my car because I'm at my brother-in-law and sister's house, and my niece is 4 years old, and
Yes.
she loves the phone. So if we were having this conversation, she would want to talk to you.
Yes. Yes. Therefore, as well here.
So so I get it completely. So thank you.
Okay. Okay. So what the questions are really important, because it not only takes away the judgment about the student,
Mhm.
it also takes away from judging the situation before I get all of the information.
Mhm.
Um, because especially if it's a child who's notorious for misbehavior, we
Mhm.
always want to, or I would always like for them to know that there isn't a side that I'm on. It's
Mhm.
more an act. It's more it's almost like an investigation, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I will talk to you in a little bit. Okay. Here, take this one. Okay. It's okay. I will share the other one with you in a little bit. If you guys exit the room for one moment until I'm done with my call. Okay, I'm back.
I only have, you're answering. I should have sort of configured these questions a little because it's as you're sharing, I'm like, oh, we're answering this question in this one. I don't have to ask this one.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's fine.
mhm.
Okay.
I get it. But do you think they're teaching the students empathy, or is it teaching the students how to look at a situation through someone else's eyes?
The
Or,
questions.
mhm,
It's doing several things. It is creating a sense of ownership. Many of the students that I've taught so far, they have a difficult time being responsible
mhm,
for their participation in situations.
mhm,
And so the questions allows them to go inward first. Okay, so it's usually, so how does it happen? When did it happen? Why do you think? And not so much why questions, but when the why questions come, they're relevant, right?
mhm,
And so just getting an assessment of the situation, because they always want an opportunity to talk about it through their lens. So you could
mhm,
do that through a series of questions so that they don't go off on a tangent.
mhm,
And then the second series of questions are more inward, so that they have an opportunity to take ownership for their participation in it. And then the third series of questions, I can't believe that I'm saying series of questions, but it's true. The third series of questions, it's more like, wow, I never even really thought about how I felt being
mhm,
in that situation
mhm,
and how that impacted me and how it might impact the other person as well.
mhm, mhm,
Or even just like bystanders, how it would impact them as well.
mhm, mhm. So I'm just going to get to this. For donors who are unaware of the benefits of ontological training or coaching, what would you say to convince them to donate to a scholarship for educator training rather than something more tangible and concrete as computers?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What would I say to them? Okay, I'm glad that you're recording this and you could um, edit it and adjust it however.
Yeah.
The first thing I would say to them is education is freedom for a lot, for at least the majority of the students that I'm teaching.
Mhm.
Education is their freedom. It
Mm.
is an opportunity for some of them, not all of them, some of them to free their families from living in poverty and stress, right?
Mm.
And in order for our students to excel and be their excellent selves, the teachers have to get to be their excellent selves.
Mm.
And the way to do that is through constant training and learning. The thing is, in education, teachers are not exposed to a wealth of information about how they themselves could be a better human being, so that they could translate that into their teaching. Most of our training consists of how to become, I'm going to use the word better, right?
Yeah.
Like better educators using a particular pathway, whether it's through data collection, whether it's I'm an ELA teacher learning a new curriculum, maybe learning how to
Or state exam.
State exams, etc. But when it comes to teaching our kids how to become better human beings by tapping into their way of beingness and supporting them to live abundantly and successfully, teachers have to find a way to do that, and it's expensive, and we don't make a lot of money to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Betty's amazing, but when I heard, she's like, yeah, for this training, it's $10,000 for 9 months.
Yeah.
But it's still so life-changing.
Yeah, and for teachers who are hearing that amount to go to a training where I'm sure they will jump on it because it sounds great and they see the benefits, they probably will be resistant to going because of the price and because of our struggles financially, because of our pay scale. However, I would say to the donors, change a teacher, empower the students. Change the teacher's life, and you are empowering a community.
Love that. That's your quote. I love it. Yes, exactly. So
change takes time, and Betty's course is an 9-month program. So I know within that time frame, teachers will have an opportunity to look within and without, and will master certain skills, strategies, and implement certain things in the classroom that will empower the children to transform their lives to be better citizens.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is, especially, I'm just going to have those as big quotes. So, Andrea, do you mind me asking your last name? I didn't get it when.
My last name is Eibel, I as in boy, L-E.
Eibel, okay. And
Eibel.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm sure it's been a long day, but and I'm
my
sure
voice I'm talking to you isn't usually this raspy.
Oh, your voice isn't usually this raspy?
No, not at all. It just happened today.
Oh gosh, I hope you're not getting sick.
No, I've been talking a lot today.
Well,
I've been doing my ontological teaching today.
Yes.
That's what I call it, ontological teaching.
Ontological teaching. Okay, I love that. I might use that, ontological teaching. Yeah. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for taking this time, and I'm sure Betty truly appreciates it too. They want something by Monday, so I will make sure. I know they're trying to. I think that they want to try to have something to try and get some scholarships too. So we'll see. We'll see what we can do. But
keep me posted.
I will, and I will send this to you too once it's written. Okay?
Okay, perfect.
But I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, bye.